Hello, and welcome to the Business Leaders Coach podcast, helping you build your business to grow and flourish. My name is Toyo Shimbi, your host, and welcome to episode 21. In this episode, I'm going to talk about what small business owners must do to survive the impact of the coronavirus outbreak. But first, I want to thank my listeners for being patient as I've gone off the air for about a few months when I announced that I was going to rebrand from Leadership for Startups to Business Leaders Coach. And as they say, things usually take longer than planned. So sorry for the delay, sorry for the silence, but I'm back. And but look what's happened since. For those of you that have listened to previous episodes, you would know that I believe that entrepreneurs are part of the solution to making this world a better place. And my research after launching my podcast showed that one segment of the business community that doesn't get as much attention, but keep our cities and societies and communities running, are small businesses. Now, when I say small businesses, just to qualify, I am using the definition from the United States, and this means businesses that are around over 50 to about 500 staff or generating a revenue around $7.5 million. Now, in the UK, this would be considered as a large business or enterprise because that's defined as more than 250 employees. But the reason why I'm focusing on that group and why I've transitioned, as I said, is because this is the bedrock of what makes our societies tick. And if they're not getting the attention, the support, I know many people want to work with Fortune 500 companies, which is great. But what we'll find is that predominantly most of the businesses that help our day to day are smaller businesses. In fact, JP Morgan Chase and Co. reported that fewer than 500 employees account for 99% of all business establishments in the US, and is similar in other parts of the world. Now, just look about what's happening right now, as in some situations with the coronavirus, some cities are on lockdown, and then you just see the impact it has when many of these smaller establishments, smaller businesses have to close down. And there will be a knock-off effect if these small business owners, entrepreneurs, if you're listening to this, if you're not taking action around this. Now, as I record this podcast, it's March 2020, and we are seeing an outbreak of a virus called the coronavirus. And it's having an impact that many of us have never witnessed in our age. And so in this episode, I want to give some input for entrepreneurs, leaders, small business owners, and leaders alike. Maybe you're a manager of a team. I'm sure this can still benefit you. And I want to just share a few things as I've reflected on what could be an area of focus, whether it's happening in your area right now or not. So, what is going on currently? Well, as the virus has now been officially called a pandemic by the WHO, even if currently where you are, it isn't as serious as in some other parts of the world, well, I would suggest that you ensure that you have some kind of contingency plan. And many experts are predicting that this situation might shift the way we do business for good. And as some have said, that by the time this situation changes, that it will become the new norm and whatever we're going through. So if you're a small business owner, a leader, an entrepreneur, what should you focus on in order to survive and weather this storm? Well, as I thought about this, I thought the one thing that you can do is to focus on building your community. And I think that this current climate is going to favor some businesses more than others, while some will struggle. But at least you can do what you can. So what do I mean by building community? Well, in this case, it's about building an online community, because the worst situation is that everybody's going to be told to either work from home. There's going to be restrictions on moving around. That's the worst situation in that could happen in your city or even in your workplace. And even if you are a brick and mortar business, this would be the time to start getting customer details, right? And so that you can build an online community. Now, you should have been doing this already. You should have been having a way of getting your customer details. And just as a side note, this is the reason why many stores will have a store card, because that's one way of them getting your details and staying in touch with you. But as they say, when's the best time to plant a tree? Well, actually it was 500 years ago. And when is the next best time to plant a tree? Well, it's today. And so don't cry over spilt milk. But what you can do is start figuring out how you can start building your online community. So business owners, entrepreneurs, let's use our imagination a bit, right? So if everyone is forced to stay at home, and you're naturally going to have more people on the internet. So what is it that you sell that you can turn into something that maybe you can teach on? So let's go to some extreme situations as a business. Maybe your bakery, you bake cakes. Well, you can get the camera out and you can start recording how you bake your cakes and get your audience to subscribe. And you can create a free recipe. People can download that. And that's one way of you simply getting your customers' details. And then if anything was to happen, there are ways of how you can still be in touch with them, and you can, out of that, you can build a community out of the people that have downloaded your free recipe. What about if it's a job that's not so exciting? Some might say accounting, no disrespect to our accountants, but accounting might be deemed to be a dry subject. But then if your audience are business owners, well, you can begin to record videos simply teaching around maybe some simple calculations, financial calculations that can help entrepreneurs. And that could be a way of giving advice while you're not there physically, but then you are actually adding value, even if you obviously aren't there. And this is a way of creating some kind of added value. You could write a manual, a user guide as an accountant, some simple ways to, and then just you fill in the blanks. So whatever you do, you're going to need to work out a way where you can build a community around it, right? And give something away, build an email list, create a community. So you can create that community using Facebook. You can also create a community on a private platform. I'll put some links in the show notes, and then that would give you a way of keeping in touch. Again, what might happen if, let's say, you don't do this? Well, if anything does happen during this time, and if in your city people are asked to stay at home, work from home, or anything like that, well, the business owner that is going to do this could potentially win the loyalty from your customers. And that's the danger. If you had a shop, for instance, you might end up finding out that your customers that are loyal to have gone somewhere else because somebody else is putting this into practice, and, but there are ways of how you can keep this interesting. If you did do this, well, you could be recording daily updates and say, we're still waiting to, for all of us to go back to normal. And here's what we're doing in the meantime. And even if this isn't going to happen, I think you can still benefit from it. For instance, coming back to a bakery, a restaurant, or something like that, where you could even start recording even now, right? And you can maybe record around how you're taking super precautions to not spread the germs, and use that as a topic that you're informing your customers, and that's also maybe bringing a brand awareness, is bringing some loyalty. People they understand what you're doing in order to be part of the solution to this problem. Maybe you've put some extra signs in your restaurant about washing hands and different things that you can do right now to create some kind of community around this that you can benefit from, even though small businesses are most likely going to be impacted by this. And then how are then you could, for instance, do something like how we're training our staff as well. So it's just a way of keeping in touch with your customers. The other area for your community is your staff. So how are you going to stay in touch with your staff? Building the community again comes into play. Maybe it's on WhatsApp, whether it's on Facebook, whether it is a platform that I've uncovered called Disciple. You can get the software for Zoom to create video conferencing. And if possible, you can create something that brings people together, even though we might be put on restriction, in terms of meeting up. That might be the worst scenario. But with platforms like Zoom, you're able to do a video conference and still have that team kind of impact. And that's something that as a small business owner, you might want to be thinking about. How do we do this? And even test getting people to already work from home. I know that there's some businesses where everybody works from home anyway. So if that's the case, that's not a problem. But for you, that perhaps everybody comes into the office, these are the kind of things that you need to be thinking about right now, making sure you've got the right software. So I'll put a link also to Zoom in the show notes so you can have a look at that. One of the things that we human beings, we long to be in community. And I'm sure if you ask anyone that has been quarantined, they will tell you that it was awful. And this is one of the reasons why businesses like Netflix are benefiting, because people just don't know what to do, and all they'll do is they'll binge watch. They'll watch that box series that they've always been thinking about, and that potentially might happen quite a lot in situations if in your city this happens. So how can you tap in to this? Well, maybe you too can get people's attention if you build your community. Well, I'm going to put into practice what I've just mentioned. And as you know, I've spent the last few months making some transitions so that this podcast can offer real value. One of the things that's going to keep working staff focused, coronavirus or not, is to have clear goals that you're working towards. And one of the areas that I see a lot is that many leaders are not clear on how to turn their vision and ideas into clear, actionable steps that helps employees and team members come alongside and support and have the ability to work. Now, we are currently in a situation where there's a high chance that more people are going to end up having to work from home. And one of the skills that a leader, an entrepreneur, a manager needs to have is to be able to set clear goals and objectives in order for people to know what they're working towards. And so I've created a guide, the ultimate guide to setting clear goals. And you can download this at businessleaderscoach.com/setting goals. That's businessleaderscoach.com/setting goals. Watch the brief video, put your name and email address, and download the guide. And then every other day, I'll send you a video teaching you how to correctly set clear goals for yourself and for your team. That's very actionable, and how to measure your progress towards it. And so that this can help you take your business to the next level. So go to businessleaderscoach.com/setting goals. And well, we're back now, so expect to get more podcast episodes coming into your feed. Please go to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and also leave a comment that will help our ratings. Also share this with anyone that you think might benefit to my next episode, to your success. Thank you.